Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. 239 passengers and crew, somewhere in the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean.
From Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, 239 passengers and crew, somewhere in the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean. For a decade, one flight has haunted the world. At the heart of aviation's most chilling mystery, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 was meant to be just another routine overnight journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. But it never made it. Now, a jaw-dropping new discovery has reopened the case, breathing fresh life into a story that has left us all wondering for far too long. This isn't just another rumor or wild theory, it's a breakthrough. Something tangible, found inside the plane itself, and it could change everything. Let's dive into the video to uncover the shocking details. The night it vanished, flight MH370, a Boeing 77200ER, lifted off at exactly 12:41 a.m. from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. On board were 239 people, tourists, students, families with infants, business travelers, and a flight crew with years of experience. Everything about the takeoff seemed normal. The plane climbed steadily, reached cruising altitude, and air traffic control passed responsibility to Vietnam. That's when everything stopped. At 1:21 a.m., the transponder went dark. MH370 vanished from civilian radar. No distress signal. No warning. Just silence. Military radar, however, was still tracking it for a while. What it saw raised even more questions. Instead of heading toward China, the plane took a sudden sharp left turn, flying back over the Malay Peninsula, cutting through Thai and Malaysian airspace, and heading deep into the Indian Ocean. There was no sign of trouble. No indication of a mechanical failure. No final words from the cockpit. Just a disappearing dot on a screen and the kind of quiet that feels like a punch to the chest. Families waiting at Beijing's airport found themselves staring at arrival boards that never changed. Panic set in, quickly followed by confusion, then an unbearable wait for answers that never came. The world reacted fast. But no one knew where to begin. Within days, over 24 countries had joined forces to search for the missing plane. Ships and submarines scanned the sea. Satellites were retasked. Planes flew day and night. The search area was massive. We understand the communications that exist between the aircraft. It was pretty remarkable that an aircraft could disappear, stretching from the South China Sea to the Strait of Malacca. But every lead turned cold. The ocean is vast, and the clues were few. Now, after years of silence, something has surfaced. Not a theory or a guess, but a real finding connected to MH370. It involves a strange signal, 370 contact switch 120.97. That phrase isn't part of any public theory or broadcast. It's a technical detail that sent shockwaves through the aviation community because it points to something hidden, possibly inside the wreckage. What was discovered could explain what happened in the final moments. It might also explain why the plane took such a strange route that night. This new development isn't just reopening the case, it's changing the way experts look at aviation safety, international radar coverage, and even the possibilities of deliberate sabotage. Scientists and investigators are back at the table, looking at old data with new eyes. And the families, after years of heartbreak and waiting, might finally get closer to something they never stopped hoping for, the truth. A satellite ping changes everything. 4 days, search teams had been looking in the wrong place. But then attention shifted when investigators analyzed MH370's satellite handshake data, brief signals exchanged between the plane and a communications satellite network called Inmarsat. The pings suggested the aircraft had continued flying for hours and likely veered south, deep into the Indian Ocean. That discovery flipped the entire investigation on its head. What followed was one of the most expensive and ambitious search efforts in aviation history. With over $160 million spent and more than 120,000 square kilometers of remote ocean searched, despite months of searching with deep-sea sonar, underwater drones, and ships mapping terrain no one had seen before, the ocean stayed quiet. There were no floating seats. No fuselage fragments. No black box. And not even an oil trail. MH370 had vanished without a trace. This was not supposed to happen. Air traffic controllers struggled to understand how a modern passenger jet could disappear in the age of real-time tracking. Aviation experts echoed that disbelief. In a world where mobile phones and shipping containers are tracked down to the meter, the idea of losing a 250-ton jet felt unreal. I'm absolutely 100% confident we'll find the aircraft. It might take 100 years. It might be like trying to find the old gold ships. Families waited for news in Kuala Lumpur, Beijing, and across the world, only to be met with silence, or worse, official updates that offered no real answers. The disappearance turned into a slow-motion tragedy. Not only because of the loss, but because of the uncertainty. Each day invited more confusion. Leads turned out to be wrong. Statements from officials raised more questions than they answered. People began to cling to any piece of information they could find. And that's when the speculation started to spread. How does a commercial aircraft just disappear? That question opened the door to everything, from technical explanations to conspiracy theories. In the absence of solid evidence, people began pointing fingers. Some focused on the plane's captain, Zahari Ahmed Shah. He was a seasoned pilot with over 18,000 hours of flight time and a good reputation. But under the microscope of investigators, his personal life and behavior came under review. At his home, authorities discovered a flight simulator. On it were saved routes that closely matched the plane's final trajectory over the Indian Ocean. For some, that detail suggested premeditation. Was the flight a carefully planned suicide? Another theory painted a different picture. Some aviation analysts believed a sudden mechanical failure, possibly a cabin decompression, may have left the passengers and crew unconscious. If the autopilot had taken over, the plane might have continued on a straight path until it ran out of fuel. Then it would have fallen into the sea, without anyone on board aware of what was happening. But without a cockpit voice recorder or flight data recorder, no one could confirm any version of events. Even after the largest search in aviation history, MH370's final moments remain locked beneath the waves, or somewhere even further out of reach. In the early hours of March 11 at 3:17 a.m., a faint but distinct acoustic signal was picked up by one of Ocean Infinity's autonomous underwater vehicles. At first, the noise was dismissed as background ocean static, just another blip in the endless hum of the deep sea. But then it repeated. Faint, rhythmic, mechanical. It wasn't marine life. It wasn't geological. It was something else. Analysts quickly ran the signal through comparison software. The results sent chills down everyone's spine. The signature matched one from a black box locator beacon, a frequency used in emergency pings meant to guide rescuers to the heart of a crash. The area was immediately marked for intensive scanning. The AUVs were sent back in, armed with even more sensitive equipment. They moved in tighter patterns, mapping every contour of the seabed. Then, it happened. A shape began to emerge from the darkness. It was long, curved, metallic, covered in a fine layer of silt, but unmistakable. A fuselage. Not whole, but intact enough to identify its structure. Alongside it, pieces of landing gear, engine components, and fragments of interior seating were scattered across the ocean floor. The discovery wasn't just significant, it was historic. The site was soon confirmed by multiple sources, and data was relayed to Malaysian authorities and international aviation bodies. After 10 years of searching, theorizing, grieving, and waiting, a major part of MH370 had finally been found. For the families, the moment was overwhelming. Some wept. Some stood in silence. Others demanded that recovery begin immediately. But experts warned that this was only the beginning. Retrieving wreckage from such depth was no small task. The pressure, currents, and fragility of the debris field made it a logistical nightmare. Still, the signal had changed everything. It wasn't just a breakthrough in the MH370 mystery, it was a triumph of persistence, technology, and the human spirit's refusal to give up. In the end, the ocean hadn't surrendered the whole truth. Not yet. But it had offered a piece. And sometimes, a single piece is enough to start rewriting the story. For the loved ones of those lost, and for the world still haunted by that disappearing dot on a radar screen, the silence was finally broken. And with it, the possibility of closure had begun.